when people are affected by adverse events, especially if they're, let's say, raped or mugged, they will think that they get angry at themselves for missing the cues. In a sense, they basically think they didn't perceive it accurately, rather than talking about a nervous system that didn't detect the cues or detected cues of safety or detected cues of threat. Detection is not the same intentionality as perception. So I took it out of the realm of cognition, because that got kind of sucked in with this concept of responsibility and intentionality. I gave it a role within the nervous system to detect, especially detect cues of threat, because that has to occur long before we start to think about what the cues are, or we wouldn't be a species. So cues of threat are easy to detect in terms of understanding that's how survival occurs. But mammals detect cues of safety, and that makes them remarkable. And that's how relationships are formed. That's how trusting activity. Unfortunately, in our Western world, we're so, I would say, syntax centric. We're focused on the language and not on the intonation of the voice that really changes how we feel about people. We think it's all in the words. And then we say, I didn't really like that person, but, I agreed with everything they said. And when you have those moments, you understand. And then you can say, really, I really like that person and I don't agree with what they're saying. What's that all about? And we have those situations occurring also because our bodies get really, our bodies prioritize, our nervous system prioritize cues of safety long, or I would say much more than it prioritizes content of the statements.
It certainly does. It seems that essentially it's a body-based focus rather than a top-down focus on understanding what's going on.
It gets confusing when you start talking body focus versus top-down, bottom-up, because in reality, neuroception is going top-down, then goes body up, but you're aware of body up and you're not aware of top-down. So what happens is that, let's say with threat, your body goes into a physiological state. You don't know what the cues of threat were. You just know your body is agitated. That's interoception, goes to a level of awareness. The neuroception of detection of risk isn't there, but you can feel the body. And that creates problems in our day-to-day relationships. Because let's say we're sitting across from each other and there's a series of cues in the ambient environment that triggers in me a sense of threat. A siren, in many cases, it can just be background sounds of mechanicals, low frequency sounds of rumble. And low frequency sounds of rumble are evolutionarily linked to threat reactions. So, people, if they're in buildings that have vibrations, they may feel very agitated. But they feel agitated, but they don't know why. But they may think it's because you're sitting across from them. And they start building that type of narrative. So we have to, in a sense, understand there's a top-down that we're not aware of, but the bottom-up part we are aware of. So we respect what our body's telling us. And at that level, we can call it a bottom-up model.
So it seems that something can be picked up in the environment and beneath conscious awareness, and it makes you feel a particular way, and then the person tries to make sense of what's going on, and then they see someone else around them, and then they try to, or something else that's going on, and then they attribute it to that, and that just colors those particular situations. Or
let's say you have a deadline, or let's say you have a deficit in your monthly bit and you're, in a sense, not feeling good. And someone's in your presence and your face is flat and your voice doesn't have its prosody, and you're projecting that at the person and their face goes blank because they're being hit with all those cues. And now you're really having to understand, because they're not sending you cues of love and trust, they're sending you cues of threat. And now, because they feel threatened by you, but you don't know that, you know that they're sending cues to you. You pick that up and you get upset with them. And the real issue is you've been upset. You just didn't know why, or you didn't, your physiology was in a state of defensiveness, and your narrative had to make sense out of it. And so in a therapeutic model, what one wants to do is take a time out, stop, feel the body before you explain why you feel a certain way. And even in a therapeutic setting, I know on social friendship modes, people will always tell you why they don't feel good. They don't say, I don't feel good. It's irrelevant why I don't feel good. The model I like to always kind of discuss is people who have chronic anxieties, meaning they always are saying, if I got this done, if I get that paper submitted, if I get that grant, life's going to be different. No. They'll find something else because their physiology keeps them moving. And it's not a timeline of accomplishments. That's not the goal. I mean, academics is really, I would say, a wonderful playground to observe. Not only participate, but also observe.
So picking up on that theme, then, is it that they're driven by their physiological arousal that may or may not be precipitated by stress? Or is it just that I just want to become a better version of myself, so I'm just going to continuously just expand what I do? We see this all the time with people.
It doesn't make a better version of yourself unless your version of yourself is productivity oriented. You know, it's accumulation of stuff or finances or publications or grants. If a better version of yourself is being a nicer person, being more helpful, more comfortable with yourself, a better friend, better parent, you know, a person who can listen to another without telling them what that other person should have done. You know, we have to understand what it is. If we have to have a template of what being a better person means to us. We also have to have a template of what life's goals are. As I said, I use the academic playground because that's really all I have known. And when I hit about 50, I really was extraordinarily concerned about the end game, because I looked around and I didn't see anyone mastering the end game, meaning they didn't leave smiling and waving goodbye. They left feeling that they hadn't gotten their due. They didn't get enough acknowledgement, or they hadn't done something. They were being pushed out. They never wanted to, when they retired, they never wanted to give up their offices. It was really quite an amazing. I was a chair at one point, and when people retire, they just didn't want to give up anything, even though there was no space for young people to move in. It was a very interesting play of what it is to be a successful person. And I would say, very concerned, how does one build a model, in a sense, to transition out of work and then out of life, feeling that it was a good life, feeling that it was, the words I use is smile and wave goodbye. How do we do that? Where are the mentors for that part? They're mentors in terms of the upslope, but are there mentors in terms of the downslope of this life cycle? And the answer is very few.